Welcome to 39-Minute Conversations. Please wait for your host to begin this meeting. Your meeting is now being recorded.
Okay, now can you see me and hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, and not see me yet. That's my fault. There I am.
Amazing.
We're doing it. Take two, having some microphone issues. Sorry about that. But as I was saying before, lovely to see you. It's been way too long.
I know, so long. It's kind of crazy that now we're talking on a podcast instead of
Instead of at the UCB theater, just as people go into a show.
Yeah, that was crazy. I feel like we started in the same place and took different roads. So it's interesting to reconnect and talk because I feel
exactly the same way. Because I've been
yeah.
so excited to catch up with you and everything. I'm so excited for you and proud of everything you're doing. And I can't wait to get into it. But the first thing I do have to do is get through a quick ad read. I hope that's okay. I'm going to make you sit through that. I apologize. This week's episode of 39-Minute Conversations is not technically presented by Blank Check with Griffin and David. Typically, I don't promote a lot of other podcasts on here. It is my preference that my listeners forget that other podcasts exist, lest they stop listening to mine. But this section of 39-Minute Conversations is devoted to two things: talking about things I love and shamelessly begging for opportunities for myself. So now I will do both. Blank Check with Griffin and David is a podcast hosted by actor and comedian Griffin Newman and film critic for The Atlantic David Sims. They explore the filmographies of filmmakers who had early massive success and how that impacts every film across their entire career. They've covered a wide variety of directors, from the Wachowskis to M. Night Shyamalan to James Cameron to Elaine May to Danny Boyle, many, many more. The film analysis is insightful, hilarious. It's a must-listen podcast for me that has introduced me to some amazing filmmakers and given me more insight into directors that I already know and love. And they always have great guests, actors, comedians, directors, critics, writers. So I think you know where I'm going with this. Why not me? Is it because I don't really have any credits yet? Is it because I've accomplished very little and I'm not particularly famous? Is it because they don't know I exist? Probably yes to all three. But are those good reasons to not have me on? Again, yeah, probably. But still, guesting on Blank Check has become a career goal of mine, so I am available and I await your call. That is Blank Check with Griffin and David. Listen to it after you finish this episode of my podcast, please. And hello, I'm Brian T. Arnold, and this is 39-Minute Conversations, a podcast about reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. But I've only got 39 minutes to do it because I will not be paying for Zoom Pro. My guest today is a very, very talented writer, director, actress, and comedian. She wrote and directed the short films Be It Rehab and Walk Out Nice and Smooth. Currently, she's a fellow in the AFI Directing Women's Workshop, where she will direct the dark comedy thriller Interloper. And she has written for and appeared on Murderville on Netflix and Jury Duty, which is now airing on Freevee and Amazon Prime. Folks, please welcome Kerry O'Neill. Hello, Kerry O'Neill.
Thank you. What an intro. Crazy.
It's all things you've done. It's crazy only because there's a lot of credits to list.
I know, all from 2020 to now as well. Every single thing you said is from 2020 to now. So
wow,
that's fucking awesome because we've been grinding at this for a long fucking time.
We have, absolutely. For people who don't know, we have known each other, like we mentioned up top, a long time. We met when we were both
10 years.
It's gotta be like 10, 11 years. Yeah. We interned at Upright Citizens Brigade together. It had to be, I started in 2012 or 2013. That's when I moved here.
2012. Yeah, started in
Wow.
2013-ish. So that is a long time ago. Crazy.
That's 10 years ago.
10 years ago. It's 2023 now.
I know. And we've seen each other a little bit since then, but not a ton. But I have, been watching things that you've written for, been, seeing everything you've done. I'm always proud of you and excited for you. And
Same,
I'm just excited to catch up.
Same. I know. You're killing these contests and you're doing the work. Sitting down to write a feature is like fucking insane. And you're like you're winning all the, like, that is like, I chose not to do that because it's so fucking hard that there's like other fucking hard things to do. So, who I was
There's
watching you and I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I know someone on this nickel like, so really proud of you and watching everything you do too.
Oh my God, thank you. It has been, we've both come a long way since seating people at UCB shows and selling them Diet Cokes and Dr. Peppers and
Bathrooms,
oh yeah,
clean.
cleaning those bathrooms.
Yeah.
All that fun stuff we used to do. But okay, so let's start where you just started. Like we have both come, like I said, a long way, and we both kind of took different paths. I used contests and stuff to kind of break my way in. Um, how was your journey, like kind of getting in your foot in the door, getting representation, your first jobs, that kind of thing?
It was so hard and so heartbreaking, like every inch of the way, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
And it all came in bits and pieces. Like UCB definitely was a huge, I would be nowhere without UCB
Hmm.
in terms of like just meeting people and collaborators and friends. Like that was
Hmm.
huge for me. And then I also ended up working there after I interned. So just being around, I think kind of like led to certain opportunities of just like doing a show with this person and doing
Hmm.
that. And I met Carmen Angelica at UCB as well. And she directed a web series I did in 2017.
Hmm.
Um, First thing I like decided to shoot myself. I've been doing just sketch comedy. Like, well, when I met you, I was doing UCB. We were
Hmm.
both trying to take classes and interning to take
Yeah.
classes. Then I eventually worked there and got put on a sketch team there as a writer.
Hmm.
Uh, and then yeah, through meeting the people at UCB, every other thing came. Like me and Carmen made this web series that didn't do. I hustled that around too. Didn't do, like
Hmm.
thought I was gonna get this web series into like Sundance or something. I don't know.
Sure.
But I didn't know anything. So
Hmm.
but it got some write-ups and everything, and eventually I interviewed. I got to be like a writer's assistant at Abominable Pictures, which was making like all the amazing comedy like Wet Hot American Summer, and
Oh wow.
some of the ones I worked on were very little known, like a show about Rob Riggle having a jet ski academy. But that that's on Sony Crackle now, that Crackle owns, or the Chicken Soup for the Soul people own Crackle now. Sony
Okay.
own it, but now the Chicken Soup for the Soul people own it.
So
um
is Rob Riggle's Jet Sea Academy available anywhere, or is it
it
still on
is,
Crackle?
it's still on Crackle.
Okay. That's
uh
good. At least it's, I've interviewed several people who's like, oh yeah, that show I wrote for isn't on a streamer anymore. It doesn't exist. It's hard, it's impossible to find now. It's
yeah.
heartbreaking. So it's cool that even despite the change of ownership, your first kind of job is still out there, at least.
Yeah, thank God for the good folks over at Chicken Soup for the Soul. They're doing the hard work. No, I've been really like, well, can I say fucked
I mean, you
by,
said it a lot already, so it's fine.
uh, like I got to write a sketch I did at UCB was in the UCB show on CISO
Hmm.
doesn't, and then the Wriggle show, and then I was a writer's assistant on Wriggle, and also was given an opportunity to write a script, which is amazing, which a lot of showrunners don't do. They don't
Hmm.
assist in a script. So I was really lucky that I was just an assistant. I was even an assistant on Murderville, like, and I got to co-write a script, and then they brought me back as a staff writer after
Gotcha.
I'd been a staff writer. So I really like got it out the mud. I was just living that assistant life, and at the same time, making my own stuff, made the web series. I interviewed for a job that I didn't get, but the head writer of that show passed my web series along to, like, loved me, passed my web series along to my current manager. I had a meeting with her, and then I was sort of like off to the races. But I would say by the time I got, and then nothing happened after that for a
Sure.
long.
Off to the races, but still in the starter's gate for a while. That's how it works.
What about you? How did you like, what happened after, sorry, you probably covered, what happened after UCB? Like you
So
and Dennis were
yeah,
together and both grinding out feature films left and
yeah,
right.
yeah. Dennis and I lived together for a long time.
You
Just
to
both of
me are
us,
like the brothers from Adaptation.
pretty much. Yeah, we were living together. We were both writing on our own stuff. I went through UCB. I never did like a UCB house team or anything. Which happens. No big deal. But I wrote for the CBS comedy showcase, and I think it was 2016, 2017. And at that point, I was like, I don't think I'm going to go any further in comedy, specifically sketch comedy. Like, it's just, there aren't that many jobs in it. I moved out here to write features anyway. I should try to get back into that. So I wrote a feature, won a screenwriting contest, got repped off of that. After a couple years of that, not really, it wasn't a great fit. So my agents at that time dropped me. Then I fired my managers at that time. Entered another script into a different contest, and won that one. And new managers, new agents, and then that worked out much better. It's a much better fit, and that script ended up, on the blacklist and has been optioned, and just waiting for great director attached. There's more I can't really tell you like on mic, but it's been very exciting and very cool. And like, yeah, so like I think our two stories are just a goes to show people that there is no one way to kind of get in the door in this town. It's just kind of whatever works for you.
Yeah, and like try a lot. You have to do so many things. Like I would just like I would just like work for free on anybody's thing, like
Same.
PA, like just like grinding out those. And now, I mean, I still will. Honestly, like you just have to be like around and helping people, and they'll give you help. And then if you keep actually doing the writing, like I do think it happens. If you have to like have no other goals but to try to make it happen though.
I think that's absolutely true. And it's definitely, and one thing you mentioned that I think is really an important thing that I don't think writers talk about enough, but I have heard a little bit when it comes to networking. It's almost, a lot of people will try to be like, okay, well, what person who's successful can I meet and how can they help me? Which is an understandable thing, but it's also what has worked for you and what's worked for me, and I think is kind of a path that is more fruitful, is to kind of network people around your level, work with people, help people, and then you kind of rise together. Because I mean, people who are above you might give you good advice, might help you out in some ways, but they came up with people too that they're looking out for already, so it's harder to like pull other people up as much as it is like to climb together.
Yeah, and I remember everybody saying that to me when I was 10 years younger, and I was like,
Sure.
yeah, okay, like whatever. But I would say I'm one of the worst networkers ever. Like
I'm not great at it either.
I'm really bad. I just like being at home. I have like a senior dog, so I really love like hanging out with him. But the networking I did was just sort of like required of you in the comedy community, So that I think lent itself, because now I'm writing and directing and producing my own independent short films, which is another hell of its own, which is
Sure.
like you have to ask people for so much help. So then when I started doing that, I was like, oh yeah, like you have to be friends with it's not networking. You have to like to create something, like for you to do that CBS showcase, even to create that, everyone, like the collaboration, that's what I really love. So to me, if my networking can be just collaboration, like I just production designed a short for Jacob Wysocki, my friend who I met at UCB, my best friend, like we met at UCB doing sketch comedy, and now I showed up, I did a free, like we're still doing that shit.
Yeah.
And I'm in my mid-30s now, sad to say. You know what I mean? I'm still showing up on Saturday at 7 a.m. for free for my friend, and they do the same for me. So it is interesting. I do think about having a life and like having a kid or a family, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not really sure because I'm still trying this.
Yeah, same. No, absolutely. It's that thing of, part of me a little bit like looks at people back home like, oh man, they seem like stable and happy, and it must be nice to have that kind of stability, for lack of a better word. But it's just, I've tried that. I've tried working those jobs to, man, writing isn't going to be easy. Maybe I'll just hop into this. This is close enough. Might be, and it's not. If this is the kind of thing that like drives you and is what you want to do, it is something you have to devote most of your life toward and be your main focus.
Yeah, it's hard to like oscillate, especially with the industry the way it is now. Like when we started, or I'm sure you wanted to write movies since you were younger, right? Like the world that we were promised in general, I think every generation feels this way, is not what it is. So, but especially the entertainment industry, like write a movie and get into a contest and the movie would be made, and Harvey Weinstein would come down and buy you a bar. I'm talking about I guess I shouldn't say Harvey Weinstein, but the Boondock Saints guy.
Sure.
Like, I'm like, oh, you moved to Hollywood, you make a movie. You actually used to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it used to be, a spec sale was like, well, that's my $2 million, or, and it just doesn't happen that way. I can say that, like, I've had a degree of success in terms of, actually optioning something and director attached and met with great actors and all these different things. And it's also like, just to be a little like, people don't hear the vulnerable stuff as much, I don't think, but like, I'm also like about as broke as I've ever been, because that's just kind of how it works right
Oh
now.
yeah, I just lost my health insurance.
I lost my health insurance this year. Congrats.
So it's like, it's so funny and weird, even when you do have these small successes, which I think you just have to kind of be grateful for, but
Hmm.
also like, it's so funny. You keep waiting for the thing to happen where it's like, now I'm okay. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, you never, I think that's kind of what life is or whatever, but
I feel like
yeah.
there is that. I could be wrong. I've been in this long enough that maybe I should know better, but it feels like there is potential for, or else we wouldn't be doing this, is at least not devoting everything to it. That one win, that one like sale, that one like, okay, this isn't like the rest of my life kind of money, but is like, oh yeah, that's a year or two of salary and some degree of stability that definitely still exists. It's just further and fewer and further between, and yeah, harder to get. And because it's so much of this job is like free work to a degree, or yeah, a lot of options these days, like I was lucky that mine was a paid option, but a lot of options aren't anymore. Like it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're probably, I mean, the strike is, we're having this moment, but it is really
Hmm.
sad that the moment I feel like we finally are trying to crawl through a crack in the door. It's kind of like,
Hmm.
oh no, like, I worked for some show at Abominable. I was the writer's assistant, but I got to write 3 of these like 11-minute scripts. And at that time, I was like so fucking excited about this.
Sure, as you should have been. Yeah.
And it was like Verizon Go 90. And then like Verizon Go 90, we were like in the room finishing, like I was like script coordinated, the scripts were written, and then it was like Go 90 doesn't exist and all these things. Like,
Yeah.
so you can get an opportunity, like an option or like this, and it never comes to fruition. And you never,
Hmm.
I mean, there are so many people I meet who are like so beyond me, have sold features and TV shows and this and that. And you never know. I would never know because it never happened.
Yeah.
So you have to really like enjoy the process, which I'm learning now, which is like, I want to ask you, because
Okay.
I've been really lucky about, because I was an assistant, I got to go to set. So writers like are not really getting to go to set that much, but as the assistant, I would be able to go to set.
Hmm.
So by seeing that, that made me want to direct, like just being around on set. I was like, oh, now that's why I started really being like, now I want to write a feature, because I was really comedy, like I want to do comedy, and maybe I could become a TV writer because I love being funny and, you
Hmm.
know, in comedy. And then I got to set as an assistant. I was like, oh, I like collaborating and making comedy. There's a whole nother level of
Hmm.
collaboration, directing and orchestrating the whole thing. And so that sort of changed the goals for me,
Hmm.
uh, expanded the goals, not changed them. But are you wanting to direct a feature that you ever write? Or are you sort of like, because the where I am, because I've made some shorts, I'm like, I would love to sell a script, but I'm trying to like make the movie about my child, like make the movie that I have to direct. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't think I'm gonna give anyone's gonna pay me any money to do that. If I get to make that movie, like I'm
Right.
gonna lose money for and years of my life, right? So
Sure.
yeah, what is your stance on writing and directing and how solitary writing is, and when does it become collaborative for you?
Yeah. I definitely write. Directing is definitely in my goals. It's something I've talked to my reps about in terms of the best way to kind of make that happen. And I think the advice that they gave me is kind of what you're already doing, which I don't know if that comes from advice from your reps or just like your instincts for talking to people, but it is, their recommendation to me was, write a script that is producible, that isn't like too expensive, direct a short that is, you know, emblematic of what that movie will be, and then use that at festivals or just send it around and use that as like your proof of concept, which you are doing with Be It Rehab. And I know you had the short first.
Well, good luck, brother, because that advice is
But Be It Rehab, I know it takes time and I know it's hard to do. But so you made Be It Rehab. You didn't have a feature version of that yet when you first made that, right?
no, I was getting pretty fed up. I shot that right before COVID happened in 2019. Actually in 2020, in January 2020 and February 2020, I shot
that. Okay.
And we actually had to push the shoot our last day to February because I think one of the kids had COVID, but that's kind of so passe to say at this point. But it was pre-March 2020.
Right.
And I made that because I was getting no traction, like at all. And I had been writing pilot after pilot. Shout out, I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Ben Axelrad's pilot class. I kind of like learned how to structure a pilot in Ben's class.
Cool.
So I was taking his class and then redoing the class with people I met in that class and just keeping writing. And I had a rep, my manager was at 3 Art. So I thought, oh, something's going to happen. And nothing was happening. So I was like, I'm going to make this short because this is the thing I want to make. If I stop, if I just give up this dream, like I would want to make this. And I thought it was like kind of a dumb idea at the time because it's a pretty hard drama movie. And all of my other stuff is like straight up comedy. But I really learned a lot about directing and making a movie and worked some psychodrama stuff out and like, you know, so it was really interesting. And I almost did it as a personal exercise. But it opened up another door of being like, okay, like now I can direct. But all of that was born from just being like, I got to do something and not like another fart video or, some dumb thing.
No, I hear that.
Thing, and then I can drop the mic. And then that just kind of made me be like, all right, I'll keep going.
Which I'm glad you are. I've watched Be It Rehab. And I do want to ask about this because I want to ask you about so much. This is only a 39-minute conversation, so it's tough. But Jury Duty and Murderville are obviously such broad comedies. And then Be It Rehab is so like, it's slight and it's dramatic and it's humanistic and it's very like, so on a writing level, what does it feel like to kind of switch gears that dramatically between, not just genre, but like entire tone and feeling?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I know I've also like, I feel like I'm overly shouting out UCB, but doing comedy makes you think about why you think something is funny, and you have to know, you don't have to, you can still be funny if you don't know why you think something's funny. But all of my comedy is from such a dark place. I think the darkest things are funny, and like I'm funny. I might not be like a crazy joke machine, not that I'm not, if anyone's hiring, but like I'm more of like like how like Eastbound and Down, like character based writer. And so it's not so much as switching gears to me as much as it's like, oh, I'm the person in the room who's making like pretty dark jokes, like Terry Seattle on Murderville is living in his office, like so it is all like within my brand. But I would also say about working on Murderville and Jury Duty and then directing in general, or those are some of the two of the most collaborative television shows you could ever make. It's like kind of happening on the spot. And Jury Duty is like we put on a play for a man for 3 weeks. Like
oh yeah, I can't wait to talk more about Jury Duty. But keep going.
And yeah, it's the making something all together that's really exciting to me. And so whatever the tone is, I think leaning into that drama with Be It Rehab was a challenge that made my comedy so much funnier and it was really easier for me to think of drama in terms of visuals when comedy is so written. Like my dialogue in general has gotten better in my comedy from just trying to write something real that's not supposed to be jokey, which I know that you're right, when you're writing a feature, you can't just be jokey. So I remember when I was working on the Wriggle show and stuff and talking to my friend Tim, who was show running one of the shows I talked about. And he was like, the dialogue is like a little jokey. And I would be like, what do you fucking mean? Like, it's not, you know.
This is a comedy. What are you talking about? It's supposed to be. Right.
Yeah. So trying to do something more dramatic taught me how to be more funny in a more real way, which are the things I find funny, are things, you know. So.
Yeah, there is something to, I think I was listening to an interview with, I think it was Jason Segel was talking about writing Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And Judd Apatow told him, like, write it like a drama because you're a funny person and your drama is going to be weird and funny. So, and I think that comedy, you know, again, shouting out to UCB, is about not trying to be funny a lot of the time. It is about honesty and truth and kind of embracing the bizarre without so much joking about it or commenting on it. And I think that, you know, good dramatic writing, good comedic writing have a lot more parallels than I think people realize.
Well, you start to wonder, right? Because I even watch, I'm not, no shade to anybody, but my own early work, my web series I mentioned or whatever, you start to wonder, like, or when you watch anything, like there's like the joke of like, no one wants to watch anybody's short film because it's going to be bad, you know.
Sure.
What is it that separates? Why are some of these things so bad? Like, what makes this style of like short film so regular to me, or a web series about roommates or something like that? And what doesn't it have? It's dramatics. It's just dramatics. It's not that they're not talented. They didn't have like the best camera. They didn't have people who were super committed, but I think it's like down to the dramatics of the script. And so making that, deciding to make a short film about like my childhood trauma, my comedy writing so much better. It really did, because I was like, all right, this needs something to hang a hat on, you know?
No, absolutely. And I think that honestly is kind of the answer to why some things are successful and some things aren't in different ways, is being able and willing to mine what is personal to you. Because I think a lot of those shorts are just like, oh, I think this is funny. I think this is a fun idea. But I think no matter, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those can be entertaining. Those can be fun. But I think the ones that really stand out are the ones that are from a personal place. I'll just say, like, my Blacklist script, it's like a weird sci-fi dramedy, but it comes from a very real place of like some trauma in my life and some of my phobias and the fact that I think about death all the time. And I'm like, well, how can I put that into something? So I think that's really kind of what delineates like just making something versus making something that connects with people, is they have to see part of you in it.
Yeah, and you have to be a jobber, right? Because when you bring that part of yourself into it, like you're talking about this, it's like it can't be bad. So you have to challenge yourself and kill your darlings or whatever. And when you put something personal into it like that, you're motivated from a deeper place to do painful rewriting, because you're like, this is me. Like
Right.
this has to be right. Versus like maybe something that's like, someone give me $500 and we've got someone has an Ari, so let's write something and do it, you know.
Sure.
That, yeah, writing is really painful.
It is. It's great though, right?
Yeah, but it is painful, and it's like supposed to be painful. I think you have to like polish a turd.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. And I love this conversation, but I do want to, we don't have a ton of time, so I do want to start talking about Jury Duty, which I have watched all of now. It is on Freevee. All the episodes are out as of today.
Then I can talk about it. So
And now you can talk about it. And this won't come out until Tuesday anyway. So like people will have time. So we can get into anything.
I haven't seen it. I don't know.
It is, for people who don't know, is a very funny experimental kind of reality show. It chronicles the inner workings of a jury trial through the eyes of one juror. But the twist is that everyone involved in the case, judge, jury, bailiffs, plaintiff, defendant, are all actors except for that one juror. The whole thing is fake. With a show like this, there's only so much you can script, right? There's going to be a lot of improv, a lot of like replanning and restructuring. What was the writing process like on a show that is both kind of scripted, but also can't be fully scripted?
Yeah, I would say on both Murderville and Jury Duty, we wrote like, Murderville had like 30 page. We wrote it scripted and would write like guest response. And Jury Duty, we wrote sort of curb style outlines, but we had to write that whole show, you know.
Right.
So I would say it was one of the hardest. No one has ever done it before, which we kept saying. like, because you have a protagonist who you don't know.
Right.
And what can we know about what he's going to want,
Mhm.
And there was a time when we didn't know who the celebrity would be, but we knew like, okay, there would be one celebrity and hopefully like everybody wants a celebrity to put their shine on them, right? So we're like, that was what we were banking on of how to get him to do something
Mhm.
in the beginning, and thank God it worked. But we wrote like, the room was like 10 weeks and we wrote a lot of different versions of the show, but pretty much we had to create the entire, well, Lee and Jean wrote an incredible script, but then we had to rewrite it to fit more of the bits into it or whatever.
Mhm.
And then to gauge what bits would work, like each episode probably had like one set piece. But then we had to really, like, it was a lot of writing. It was a lot of coming up with characters and how they would interact
Sure.
and
No, absolutely.
parts of writing. And then
Mhm.
you just finished out the outline. Um, and I really, really loved it because when I direct my shorts too, I think something that makes them stand out and makes things seem real is like, we can just throw, it's not Sorkin style, like you guys can say it the way you want and I'll rewrite it that way. And then the freedom to make
Mhm.
it does make it seem real. And so
It
I think,
does.
yeah, it was probably harder to write than any other show room I've been in, but
Mhm.
um really rewarding and like cool to be like, yeah, I really am just one small part of this, because even as a writer, you didn't, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Took it and ran. So yeah, but everything was pretty scripted.
In addition to being one of the writers, you played an officer of the court, so you were in there a lot. Um, I know you have a lot of experience with improv, but how much pressure did you feel to like not blow it? You know, if you say the wrong thing, you can just derail the whole show.
Yeah, it was really kind of scary because I don't really love performing. But I can improvise, but I'm not like an actor, so I wouldn't have wanted to be a juror. So it was like the perfect role for me. But I
Mhm.
would say I did more. I was nervous, but once you're there every day, also Ronald, the guy is 6 feet tall. So I was so nervous when he would walk in because it's such a power dynamic when someone's 6 feet tall. But then he
Mhm.
was so nice and friendly when he would come through the metal checker every day. I was like, okay, but it was nerve wracking. And I had like because I played an officer, I had a earpiece in
Mhm.
where I could be like saying covert things, like, and that was something I got really nervous about, that I would respond to somebody in an earpiece while Ronald was like near me. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
he's coming or something.
Let's talk about Ronald because I think, he's the one non-actor. He's the one person who thought the whole thing was real. And what was kind of stood out about the whole show to me was, this guy's getting thrown twist after twist, weird thing after weird thing, and it keeps revealing him as this like kind, decent guy who wanted to do a good job and the right thing by his fellow jurors and for the case. And casting the wrong person could have been disastrous. Could have been like somebody revealing the worst things about themselves. How fortunate was it, like casting someone like Ronald, and how much did that sort of dynamic surprise you, I guess?
Um, well, it was surprising and it was extremely surprising because he is so nice. But also unsurprising because the people who were casting had found everybody from the Borat movies, like they knew what they were looking for. And so
Mhm.
I had total faith. From the beginning, we were looking for somebody who was like Ronald because we wanted to push them into this 12 Angry Men moment where
Mhm.
unite this crazy, cast of characters almost. And Ronald fucking did it. It was
Yeah.
insane, dude. Like during the deliberations, I like sweating. It was like being at war shooting the show. You cared so much because like
Mhm.
that could have been another thing that I worked on and never came out because and Ronald. So
And because it's so experimental, it's the kind of thing that like this could either be like a game-changing kind of show or no one will ever know this happened, which is a high
yeah.
wire act.
Yeah. And also just props to Joe Schmo, which was a show that sort of like came up with this idea. And I would say if you liked jury duty, maybe go on YouTube and watch Joe Schmo because it was a similar thing. We were hoping to get a really nice guy, but the guy on Joe Schmo, the Joe or whatever, his name's Matt. He was so sweet and kind, and it changed the game of the show, and
Hmm.
it changed the game of our show too. So it was quite lucky to find such a special person. Like Ronald really. We thought Todd would like freak Ronald out, this character of Todd, but he loved him and was so kind. And
the Bug's Life moment was just like so sweet and so like just charming. What a charming little like guy he must be in real life.
yeah, personally to me, like what was really exciting, and I think something I mentioned when I had the meeting on the show was like, oh, you could become a different version of yourself for the jury. Like who, like, you know, like raw, like, so that's kind of written into the show where like the guy lies about his wife. But um I never thought of it in a more kind light, like Ron. I don't know if Ronald was that nice of a person in daily life.
Sure.
He was so nice. He is. I mean, I do know because I'm friends with him. He's so nice. Like, I think at one point I would start talking shit because we had him, he was doing his own confessionals on a camera every night that we told him they're doing. And then he would do, you know, the confessionals for the documentary, and then he would talk to the people around. And everything he said was always really consistent. And I'm like, they would have caught me talking some shit. I would have been like, James fucking Marston rolled up and did this shit. Are you kidding? Like Ronald never did that. It's so interesting.
Casting James Marsden too was such a funny idea and such a. You said that there was a plan for a celebrity in the beginning. Was that sort of like, you know, if we throw one weird thing, one obvious weird thing at this person, like that will make everything else weird less weird? Like, what was the thinking behind like we need a celebrity playing themselves in this?
Well, first of all, it was Lena and G's script, and it was Kevin Bacon in the script, which was so fucking funny just to think like Kevin Bacon doing this. So I think the idea of it was like that the celebrity could get this guy kind of on the hook, and that like and every a guy like Ronald, if a celebrity is kind of taking a liking to you and is kind of like, oh yeah, these people want a picture or whatever, that you'll kind of like them. And that'll kind of be a way in. But um I'm pretty blown away by what James got away with, the hype, the things that
It's a great show that people. Sorry, go ahead.
He like improvised so many of those really hilarious lines, like just straight up like James Marsden's like an improv king.
It's such a funny show. It's on Freevee every episode. People should watch it. We have less than 3 minutes left already, which is crazy. This has gone by way too fast.
Nobody, did I say anything of value?
Oh, you said so much of value. This has been a great conversation. But with the time, before we get into like the deeper questions where I get to know your soul, I want to give you this opportunity to plug anything you want to plug, talk about what you're working on now, where can people follow you on social media, etc.
I am currently, I just really would love it if you watched Jury Duty on Freevee. Actually, it's also on Amazon Prime. Nobody tells you this, but it's Amazon Freevee, it's Amazon Prime. Freevee is free TV, so you don't need Amazon Prime, but if you have Amazon Prime, it's on there. And you're telling me I have no time and I'm talking, I'm sure.
No, you're great. 2 minutes. Keep rolling.
And I'm in this AFI DWW workshop where I'm going to be directing a new short. It's called Interloper. It's a dark comedy thriller. It's kind of like a merge of my sort of Andrea Arnold, be at Rehab aspirations with like a Ruben Ostlund sort of dark humor to it. And I'm raising money for it. And you can check out all the info on Interloper Film, and you could make a tax deductible donation to AFI through that link, Interloper Film. But also you could just check it out. Got the deck up there. I have a little bio up there. You could follow me on anything you want. I'm not verified. I never have been, and I never will. And it's Tom Skerritt Fan 1. And I changed my name to that because I was like, oh, I don't want it to be Kerry O'Neill. But now I just have to tell people it's Tom Skerritt Fan. So that's what it is everywhere across the board.
That's what it is. I will make sure to post the link to
Brian,
your
less than
film.
a minute. Brian,
less than a minute. I'm sorry.
You want to plug anything that you want to plug?
Oh, I just want to ask you more questions with this minute left. I want to get to know you on a deeper level. That's what this section is for. Kerry, what do you think happens after we die?
I think we're just dead.
Nothing else?
That's why you have to go for it right now. It's nothing. Like, if it is something, you got to act like it's nothing.
When you do pass away from this earth, as we all eventually do, what do you want people to say about you?
Nothing. I don't want legacy. I'm too scared Nobody talk about me and nobody perceive me for the rest of my life and death. But if you do perceive me, please think I'm cool and funny.
If you could live forever, would you want to?
No. Maybe. No.
Your meeting has ended. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to 39-Minute Conversations, hosted and produced by Brian T. Arnold. Music by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and tune in for new episodes, and don't forget to rate and review. If you didn't like what you heard, please don't do any of that. That's okay too. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe and be well.